Good day, I am Andri, and once again, I am warmly welcoming you all to my Essential Works of Love lectures. It is interesting that Rumi's translations have no business cresting in a wave of over 500,000, and Rumi is like selling picnic baskets or tickets to an unmarked minefield. How people can understand or are able to understand one of the greatest subjects of all times, love and works of love. The basic thing, such as love, a simple thing such as love, a love poetry of Rumi, which is not simple at all. This love poetry is meant to obliterate lovers. Rumi wants us not only to love and to give love, but to surrender. I bow to the grandeur of his full prostration, and I never want to diminish that. This is something that urges cheerfulness, that this is not something which will urge conventional morality, feeling light, good, feel good, white-lighted, nor is Rumi someone who writes for the new age tantric energy exchange, as many of you thinking that he is doing or he has done, but this is not the issue. This is giving your life to the one within that you know as the other. And this is a totally private matter. No one except you can judge how that is going. But if you are not doing it, Rumi says you are wasting your time here. Where is the solace of that statement? One would ask. I once told a greeting card company that wanted to put Rumi verses on a card, Rumi's poetry wants to dissolve the lovers. Annihilation is the point. There was a long silence on the other end. Is there a holiday? Maybe we're ripe for Rumi's knowing his way of love. And if you ask me, I hope so. I take an immense delight in meeting bright 12-year-olds who love certain Rumi poems, such as The Guest House, one of my favorites. They know the media and their community have lied to them about love with all the fake love stories, with all the fabulations, with all the necessities that are not welcomed in love. They hear Rumi trying to tell them some truth about love and loving and being loved and return love. And they appreciate it. Maybe it's time to hear about going in about the joy of the witness in love, in meditation, in giving to each other a completeness of the self, in dreams, in daylight, in broad daylight, in reality, in virtuality, time to meet the one who looks into the creek. Maybe we long now for the silence he loves. Say we're tiny blind cavefish swimming a gorgeous dark. We love the mountain the cave is inside, and somehow we love the sun, even though we haven't seen it and maybe never will. That's the love this poem sings, so how come they're widely popular? Don't ask me. I don't know. The only thing I know is that the essential Rumi is not properly understood. A creative writing teacher on the primetime show One holds up two books, The Great Gatsby and The Essential Rumi, and he says, read these and learn how to write. Now, that book has achieved the cultural status of an empty Diet Coke, and it's everywhere, and it's recommended summer reading. Can you imagine? Essential Rumi as a summer reading, or his quotes you may find in a 2-page newsletter put out by a woman's clothing store, or I don't know, some kind of preacher lines or preaching wisdom quotes. Now, Rumi's words are not that easily to be understood, and the same way is with poetry of Omar Khayyam and his Rubaiyat. People cannot only read, and it is not enough to read. There is much more beyond this activity of reading and of understanding, especially when it comes to this marvelous subject, so simple yet so difficult and so complex, as love, as works of love. Now, what can we say about Rumi's poetry as well? We all know that Rumi's poetry records that friendship is something that is appealing. Is it? What's with eyes shut facing eyes wide open? What does this mean? There is a collection of stories called Hateship, Friendship, Courtship, Loveship, Marriage. But this is something which you can read while you are driving yourself in a city tram or sitting on a bench and having a nice coffee. These are light reads. And Rumi is far from a light read. I like to watch the changing moods in poetry. I like to watch the changing nuances of falling in and out of love, and so does Rumi. He's not some mystic snob. He sees the beauty. He sees the importance of anything human beings do, no matter how scandalous it is. The sleeping and sliding around sex, the posturing of combatants prior to combat, but he always uses human incident as a lens to look into soul growth. The idea of commitment, the staple of psychology, doesn't come up, nor any fear of intimacy scolding, no shoulds and oughts. It doesn't matter that you've broken your vow 1,000 times. Still come and yet again come, says Rumi. Rumi was a genuine and remarkable, astonishing, enlightened lover, a true human being, realized. Whatever you want to call those who get to be deeply themselves. Can you understand? What does it mean to be a true human being? I had a dream once where I felt the grace of a continuing connection with one of my spiritual teachers who told me to do this with Rumi. Please do try to understand him properly. Do not succumb to superficial interpretations. Only a true human being can tell you this. My advice with any Rumi's book is to listen. To listen the other. To listen the presence inside poems, to listen presences inside poems, to listen, to connect there with an open heart and follow the ocean frog if he starts for home. We need to live and to write for a living. We need to be there for each other. We need to be recognized in each other and for each other. So, the sweetness in much of Rumi is undeniable. The sincerity in much of Rumi is undeniable. I have read Rumi many times. In his books, there are flowers everywhere, sweetness, eroticism, spirituality that makes you humble, because only in your humblest person we are able to meet. One is able to meet the other. And writing is not for fortune. It's not for fame. Writing is pouring forth visions. It is a tiresome and fatuous job where a mystic poet is talking directly to you, because we need him and he needs to listen to us. And what else one can thought of while reading Rumi except to say, I have thought of a wisdom. I have thought of a work of love. What is heart? It's the magnificent region. In certain places and times, the current of mystical awareness runs deep and very strong, more so than in others. When we speak about Greeks in the 6th century BC, and also of India and China during the century, when we speak about desert fathers, Hasidic masters, or Zen masters, we are in the same period where all these features are a part of an inexplicable flooding, and this flooding are works of love. In the Persian Empire from the 11th to the 14th century, a brilliant flowering of awareness came among the Sufis, and especially the poets. Rumi was one of those conductors of knowing and being. Sufis call Rumi the qutb, the pole of love, the pole of power, and the pole of knowledge. Through Rumi comes the transmission of the divine to this planet in the regions of love. His poetry is a record of his enduring the experience of living at the core, and in each human being there is a meeting with the divine, and that intersection is the heart. Sometimes we sense that love is our expertise, despite the obviously murderous bent of these days and hours. But still, we love in many different ways. Let me count them. There's many ways of loving as there are people, and that wildflower variety is the great beauty of this particular dimension of existence. Can you understand that love, as so simple, is seen through ordinary vision, but also at the same time we couldn't see it with ordinary vision, but in dream seeing? in drenching the planet, in knowing something which is in us but out of space. At poetry readings, once I said about Rumi's poetry, hey guys, this is not country music. This is not pop music. Because Rumi says fall in love. Fall in love in such a way that it frees you from any connecting. Can you understand? That's very difficult and very different from the lonely wail of she left me, he left me, she came back, she left again. Some of his lines have been put in songs and there is a grief of separation in them, but the words come from a different source, from a different region than popular lyrics. The love that Rumi and Shams of Tabriz move into, though, includes those dimensions and moves through them to what Sufis call the qalb. What is the qalb is the heart, but I have no synonym for that word, no in any language, and perhaps not much experience of it, because though I met one who lives there, I am no great shakes of a lover myself, or I get mean, I get jealous, I get distracted, I get forgetful. But what about Rumi? At the end of his life, one great thinker, Ouspensky, told in a letter that nothing could be found by intellectual processes and that there is only one hope, that we should find a way to work with a higher emotional center. And that higher emotional center is the work that Rumi's poetry is all about. Sufis say the heart is the comprehensive human reality and that the way of love is a path of annihilation, of the beatitude of as though it had never been. Our original state is non-being, non-existence, and we spend much of our lives trying to break free of matter, of body, free of mind and desire, back into the deep region of being and non-being. We are at the core. The refreshment of dreamless sleep when we are, but are not conscious, is a taste of it. We are here then, but with no awareness of being here. The absolute suchness, the human reality and not the melodrama, that the region of being is described in Zen texts as having no ears, no eyes, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, and no consciousness. To get there, you must die before you die. Buddha's Heart Sutra draws one along to the understanding that in that dissolving nothing exists by itself, and everything interpenetrates in the ecstatic core where heart vision begins. This is not anything theoretical. It is the practical and experimental love that annihilates, and the most ineffable of experiences, if there can be degrees of unsayableness. All of Rumi's poems may be heard as love poems. They attend the soul's flowering from grief and from every emotion that streams through the guest house of consciousness. The love way is not religious. It is rather the origin and the longing inside religiousness. Footprints disappear at the ocean's edge. When we bow to each other, feet become head in a circle. No one could tell with Rumi and Shams who was teacher and who was the student. Lover, beloved, and love became one thing with them. Images of transparency and particles, light upon light, the candle at noon, ochre, images of breathe merging with sky. We are sleeping and wake inside another sleep. We wake again, and on and on and on, as veils, the mist of language, the mist of words, the mist of Belonging, the apparent limits burn off. Each region of love leads to the unfolding. Remember that. The heart, with its many regions, moves more like interpenetrating spheres, concurrent universes than a linear path. Areas of great energy in the poetry merge with one another as layers of ocean, or as the mysterious workings of soil in a field, or the draining slant of a mountain side. Rumi's impulse feels earthward in its transformation, going down instead of up in the way one might aspire to the angelic. There is no down or up in love, but if one had to say whether Rumi's poetry goes more with the pure transcenders or more with the grief gardeners, one would say he's a ground hudger and not so much a high flyer, more Jamal than Jalal. But as Rumi himself says hundreds of times, there is little one can say about love. It has to be lived, and love is always in motion.